Well, guys, I got hacked. What follows is a true story. I always knew this day would come that I'd be targeted for having some kind of online presence, being in the Bitcoin and crypto space. Thankfully, my cybersecurity practices kept me pretty safe. The attackers got away with next to nothing of any value. They used a sophisticated social engineering tactic that I've never even heard of before. And in this video, I'm going to go through exactly what happened, how I mitigated the damage, how you can do the same. And at the end, I'll even provide a complete checklist of simple practices you can take to keep yourself safe from this kind of attack and really most hacking attempts. So, how did this thing happen? It started when I received a message from a pretty big crypto influencer who I'm not going to name just yet. Apparently, this person's account had been compromised because this is a known tactic. Attackers take over a real verified account, use the credibility of the person to recruit victims. It's not a fake profile, it's someone's actual account being operated by an attacker. They invited me onto a podcast. I got on the call. There were multiple people there. None of them were the influencer themselves, and none of them turned their cameras on. That was red flag number one. Having multiple guests on the call is also a part of the social engineering. It creates the illusion of a real production, so you don't question what's happening so much. They said my audio wasn't coming through very well, so I should download the Microsoft Teams app instead of using web-based. That was red flag number two. There's no need for that. Using web-based video conferencing is always safer. So I downloaded the app from the official Microsoft source, and that's part of what makes this attack so effective, and also why I've never heard of it before, because I've heard of these things, but it usually involves getting some random app or getting something that's impersonating a real app. No, this was actual Microsoft Teams. And again, that's what makes this effective. They never ask you to install anything sketchy. Teams is a trusted product used by hundreds of millions of people. We went through an entire hour-long podcast interview. They had clearly done a lot of research on me. This is deliberate. And the longer you're on the call, the more comfortable you get. Your defenses kind of come down, and the less likely you are to question what comes next. It also builds a sense of obligation and rapport. Then at the end is where the actual attack occurred. They asked me to do all this stuff for a thumbnail, share my screen, pull up social media pages, podcast page, and what this actually did was ensure my browser had fresh active session cookies and tokens for every account I was logged into. Those sessions are exactly what the malware harvests, among other things. I went along with it because I just didn't have my defenses up. They caught me at the worst possible time. I had just been up really late the night before because I learned my BitAxe miner had found a block. Turns out it actually didn't. It was just pointed at a backup pool that found a block, so the software said it found a block. That's a long story. Maybe I'll make another video about it at some time. I posted a Twitter thread about it. Go check that out if you're interested. And also subscribe to the Hard Money Dispatch newsletter. I'll cover it there as well. Alarm bells started going off in my head when they wanted me to enable permissions for the Teams app. And I resisted at first, but I thought it was just screen sharing, and that's how they got me. This was red flag number three, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I fell for it, honestly. They had other people chime in and put the pressure on, and somehow this just got past my defenses. I didn't think much of it, but again, I was kind of out of it. I don't know. I just fell for it. In reality, I had given Teams permission to control my computer. This is a legitimate built-in feature of Microsoft Teams called remote control. It allows another person on the call to take over your mouse and keyboard during screen sharing. It's designed for IT support and collaboration, and the attackers weaponized it. They told me to, get this, spin around in my chair so they could get some kind of AI animation for content. And this was the final piece. They needed me to not be looking at my screen for about 20 seconds. And in those 20 seconds, they used the remote control access to open my terminal and run a single command. That command downloaded and executed a piece of malware called AMOS, which stands for Atomic Mac OS Stealer. It's an info stealer specifically designed for Mac OS. When I turned back around, my terminal was open with a process running, and that freaked me out. The really crazy, weird thing is before I even knew what was happening, before I fully looked at my screen, I had some kind of visceral physical reaction. I can even get a little bit of it right now just talking about this. It was like someone was watching me and like I had been robbed, or just like something was seriously wrong. I knew it before I even saw that my terminal was open. Weirdest thing. I immediately got off the call, closed terminal, terminated the process, and uninstalled Teams. And then I got to work figuring out what had happened and how to fix it. But first, what is AMOS and what does it do? AMOS Atomic Stealer is a commercially sold piece of malware. Attackers can buy access to it on Telegram for something like $1,000 a month. It's malware as a service. That's the world we live in now. Once it runs, AMOS targets and extracts all saved passwords from every browser on your machine: Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Brave, and so on. Browser cookies and active session tokens, which means the attacker can log into your accounts without needing your password at all because they have the active session. Mac OS keychain data, which stores Wi-Fi passwords, certificates, and other sensitive credentials. Crypto wallet data and private keys from software wallets like MetaMask, Phantom, Exodus, Electrum, and others. Files from your desktop and documents folders, Discord, Telegram, and other messaging app tokens. Browser extension data, which can include 2FA extensions and password manager extensions. And the whole process takes seconds. It grabs everything it can and sends it to a remote server controlled by the attacker. This is why the attack is designed around speed. They only needed 10 to 20 seconds of unsupervised access. So now the question is, how do you clean up after an attack like this? Well, first you can use Malwarebytes to run a full system scan. That's what I did. It detected and quarantined the AMOS stealer. This likely prevented the malware from finishing its extraction or executing any secondary payloads. I logged out of every app and service that was open at the time, revoked all active sessions. And that's important because even if the attacker grabbed the session tokens, by revoking the sessions, you invalidate those tokens. Most platforms, Google, Twitter, Discord, and on, let you see and revoke all active sessions from your security settings. And doing all this, by the way, I'm only not even halfway through. Doing all this stuff took me like the last day and a half. It's been kind of exhausting. Then I changed passwords for every account that was open or accessible during the attack. If your browser was open and logged into something, you have to assume that session was compromised. Cleared my browser cache and cookies entirely. This removes any residual session data that might still be exploitable. Updated my operating system because Mac OS updates sometimes patch vulnerabilities that info stealers exploit. Always worth doing immediately after an incident, really anytime you can. If you have a password manager and it was unlocked at the time of the attack, change your master password and rotate any credentials stored in it. If it's locked, your stored password is likely safe because AMOS can't decrypt an encrypted vault. And I got super lucky there because my password manager was locked at the time. So all they got was an encrypted blob. Check for any unauthorized changes to your accounts: recovery emails, phone numbers, connected apps, API keys. Attackers sometimes add persistence to your accounts so they can get back in even after you change your password. Now the important part: how to keep this kind of attack from happening. There's a lot to cover here. So take notes because these are all things that you can do and remember going forward. Never get on a call with someone using a downloaded app. If you can avoid it, use the browser-based version instead. If you do use the app, don't grant it any permissions. And definitely never grant remote access to anyone under any circumstances, unless you know them personally and you're watching your screen the entire time. If anyone asks you to look away from your screen for any reason, that's a red flag, full stop. There's never any legitimate reason for this. No real podcast interview or meeting requires you to turn away from your computer. Here's a really important one. Use a guest or non-admin user account for all your daily operations. On Mac OS and Windows, the admin account has elevated privileges that allow software to install and run with fewer restrictions. A standard user account limits what malware can access and execute. This alone can dramatically reduce the damage from an attack like this. Use an encrypted password manager like 1Password or Bitwarden that locks itself after a set amount of time or when your computer sleeps. If AMOS runs while your vault is locked, it can't read your stored passwords. Don't save passwords in your browser's built-in password manager. Chrome, Safari, and Firefox store passwords in a way that AMOS and similar info stealers can extract directly. A dedicated password manager with its own encryption is far more secure. Install antivirus software like Malwarebytes. It's what caught the malware on my machine. Macs are not immune to malware. That's a myth that needs to die. Although 5 to 10 years ago, it was a lot more rare. Today, that's not the case. Backup sensitive files like tax returns, financial docs, and anything you wouldn't want an attacker to see, back it up onto an encrypted cloud drive or an external drive that isn't always connected to your computer. Don't keep them sitting on your desktop or in documents, because those are the first two folders AMOS scrapes. Place canary tokens throughout your files. These are free, invisible tripwires you can generate at canarytokens.org. You create a token, embed it in a file, like a fake passwords.txt file or a decoy PDF, and place it in your documents folder, desktop, or wherever sensitive files would normally live. If anyone opens that file, you get an alert with their IP address and timestamp. It won't stop an attack, but it's for detection. It tells you immediately if your files have been accessed by someone who shouldn't be there. Never download files or click links from untrusted sources. This is basic, but worth repeating. Even if a message comes from someone you know, if their account's been compromised, the link is not from them. Never keep private keys on your device, and never store images or screenshots of seed phrases. This is the main thing attackers are hoping to find when they deploy an info stealer. If your seed phrase is in a text file, a note, a screenshot, or anywhere on your hard drive, AMOS will find it. Use a hardware wallet instead. Write your seed phrase on paper or metal and store it offline. Cold storage is untouchable by this type of attack. If you have browser-based wallets like MetaMask or Phantom, be sure they're locked when not in use. Even if the browser they're installed on isn't open at the time, malware like AMOS still grabs data from them, but it'll be an encrypted blob the attackers can't use. If your passwords are weak or reused, there's still a chance they could be brute force attacked, so be sure to use strong, unique passwords. Verify podcast or interview invitations through an independent channel. If someone invites you onto a show through DMs, go find that person's official website or a different social media account and confirm the invitation directly. Don't trust the DM alone, even if the account looks legitimate. And if you really want to be safe, you can use a virtual machine for any activity that involves calls with people you don't know personally. A VM is an isolated operating system running inside your real one. Even if malware executes inside the VM, it can't access your actual files, passwords, or wallets on the host machine. It's an extra layer that contains the blast radius. One more thing. Enable two-factor authentication on everything and use an authenticator app or hardware key where available, not SMS. If an attacker gets your password but you have 2FA enabled with an app like Authy or YubiKey, for example, they still can't get into your account. SMS or text-based 2FA is better than nothing, but it can still be bypassed through SIM swapping, which is another common attack vector in crypto. So just to recap the checklist real quick. 1. Never get on a call with someone using a downloaded app if you can avoid it. 2. If anyone asks you to look away from your screen, don't do it. 3. Use a guest or non-administrator user account. 4. Use an encrypted password manager. 5. Don't use your browser's built-in password manager. 6. Install antivirus like Malwarebytes. 7. Backup sensitive files to an encrypted cloud drive or external hard drive. 7. Place canary tokens throughout your files. 8. Never download files or click links from untrusted sources. 9. Never keep your private keys on your device. 10. If you have browser-based wallets, be sure they're locked when not in use. 10. Verify your podcast or interview invitations through an independent channel. 11. If you really want to be safe, use a virtual machine. And 12. Enable two-factor authentication on everything. That's going to do it. It's kind of hard to believe this happened to me, but it can happen to anyone. Thankfully, the attackers picked the wrong person because they didn't get anything of value. I had protocols in place to ensure that when this kind of thing did happen, the damage would be mitigated and I could just respond in a timely manner. On the other hand, if this had happened to someone who was on an administrator account and didn't have a safe password manager and didn't know what was going on, or even if they just had private keys to a crypto wallet sitting on their desktop or something, then this damage would have been far worse. And if someone didn't know what was happening, the malware could have just persisted. And if it had administrator privileges, then it could have done all kinds of things to sneak around and make sure you couldn't see it was there anymore and keep running in the background, even bypass stuff like Malwarebytes or uninstall Malwarebytes potentially. And in that case, you would have to completely wipe your hard drive and start with a fresh reinstall of your operating system. And that creates a whole another headache. So simply doing things like operating on a guest account, not having any private keys or any hot wallets online, and having a good password manager. Just by doing those things, it goes from being a headache that takes a day or two to clean up and manage, or that's the difference between it being like that or being a catastrophic event that could take you days or weeks to clean up and would require either reinstalling your operating system or just getting a new laptop, either one of which would be a massive headache because you would have to back up the things you need to a cloud drive and just erase everything else and start fresh, whether it's a new device or just a new operating system. So, thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful and that it can help someone out there protect themselves from this kind of attack. Again, it was a type of attack I've never heard of. I mean, I've heard of these social engineering type things, but never in this manner, never targeting podcasters in this way and using a legitimate app like Microsoft Teams. So it's a variation of a common thing out there, but typically they have you download an app that is malicious or something like that. I've never heard of it using legitimate software in this way, although it's simple enough now that I think about it. And I can't believe that I fell for it, but the best way to approach these things is just to assume that it's going to happen to you at some point and take precautions beforehand. That's number one, just in terms of I gave you the specific checklist. Sort of the broad general checklist is to take precautions now before it happens. Number two is this goes along with number one really. One of those precautions is to have detection set up like canary tokens. And the other thing is to respond quickly to it when it does happen, because having protection set up beforehand, having detection for when it does happen, and being able to mitigate the damage because you had those things set up is really the best you can hope for, because really anyone's vulnerable to this type of attack. I always knew I would be targeted sooner or later, so that's probably why I had stricter protocols in place than most people. So especially if you have any kind of visibility in the crypto space, you should be hyper vigilant and do everything you possibly can. Definitely every single thing that I mentioned in this video. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.